lot of information and data points, and they're building out a dashboard. And I don't know, Tom, do you have an estimate as far as time frame when the board will look at something?
Yeah, so they had said once we get them all of our data points, and we've got them all the data points, and he said it's generally around 30 days that he's able to build that. Well, that's happening. We haven't committed to actually purchasing the other module called 5 Lab, because we just want to make sure that we have a clear plan as to exactly what those data points are, and that's kind of what the process is. So the board got all the data points, they added on more data points. We were able to pull things together that weren't part of state reporting that Forecast 5 just couldn't grab. And so the plan is, now that they have everything that we've given them, it should be about a month we'll have that. It's a little bit because of the holidays, but around about a month.
All right, so in looking at our schedule, would the January 28th meeting be a shoot for?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, and then if that changes, we'll update it at the January 7th. But so Pearl, if you can note that, that we'll have that at the January 28th meeting.
Is the reason why this takes so long because we're asking for additional data points that normally we wouldn't get? I mean, I feel like the administration should have a lot of this stuff just.
Well, we do, but it's all over the place. So for instance, I can put out on a table and you can see all of our, like students that are participated in sports for this year. Students participated in sports for last year. What is taking a little bit longer for our PE department is to be able to break it down and say, okay, it's this many kids were on the track team this year and that. Like, I thought we'd be able to get that quicker. They're working on that. Same thing with music. So we want to be able to break down, these are the kids that were in band, these are the kids that were, so we have it clearly. But to answer your question fully, yes, there's a lot of templates that they don't have because they don't have kids, let's say, they may not use dibbles or star testing. So there's not a set thing that Forecast 5 has for dibbles and star. So we've got to provide them with all this information by grade level, and it just takes a little bit of time for them to build it. And once they build it, and then it's done, then we'll be able to actually have the information, click on it, and say, okay, this is third grade across the district that are reading on grade level. This is what third grade is in Cole, and so on and so forth. So it does take a little bit of time with the things that we added on.
Phil, it's kind of it's to build it right the first time. It's going to save tons of time every year after.
What is Forecast 5? Is that like a, not familiar with that, you may have talked about it before.
So we have Forecast 5 right now we use it a lot for like budgetary planning, but Forecast 5 also does other things, one of them being 5 Lab, and that it's kind of a live document that pulls from everywhere that stuff has been reported to the state. And it comes right up on a dashboard. So rather than me give everybody, like all of our suspensions, our out-of-school suspensions, our number of kids that are in clubs and activities, and just have it all over the place, it will be on live visual graphs, bar graphs, pie graphs, whatever. I can just send you guys the link and you'll actually be able to see that in real time. And then what it does is it takes all districts across New York State that have the same demographics as we do. And then it says this is how many kids they have involved in these sports. These are how many coaches they have. These are how many TAs they have for special ed. Everything across the board. So then when we're doing planning purposes, we can see where we kind of stack up against schools across the state. So to build it takes a little bit of time to be able to do, but once it's done, we're going to have that live.
Okay, so like 2 weeks after we get it, we can have an update and see
You'll see the numbers. You'll see where we're at. Everything that we have on here, students taking college level courses, students in band, music, theater, students playing sports. What are those sports? How many coaches do we have? Monies that we're putting towards each of the sports. The whole 9 yards.
I'll say part of what I really like about when we looked at it at the school board convention was more than just putting a visual to it. Obviously, us as board members, we are limited. We shouldn't be able to drill down to the student level or individual, classroom level. But as administrators, they can, and so it really makes the data actionable. They can get down and see what is making up the subset groups and how to act on it. So I think it's a really powerful tool, assuming that you like what you're saying.
it's a month when they get all the information. So we were just able to we would send them stuff, and then they would say, well, we need this, this, and this. So then we just finally, this past Friday, got them everything that they needed to be able to build this out. And then all the response back from them to do that will take about 30 days.
So for now, January 28th, the plan is that they'll present at our meeting. When I say they, whether it's Tom or Forecast 5, I don't know, but. All right. Speaking of presentations, the next meeting, January 7th, Pearl, if you can note, we'll have an update. One of our board goals was to have administration deliver the set of numbers by which we're going to measure the effectiveness of the revised principal and teacher evaluation framework. So I was talking to Tom about that earlier today, and January 7th is when they're going to present that. So if you have if there's anything you particularly want to see, although this is one of those presentations where we don't know what we don't know, that's going to be at January 7th. That's the only one for that night as far as I know. January 28th is becoming a little hectic. We have the 3-year budgeting projections, revenues, security project update, and the data discussion. So January 28th is a big night. So on all those presentations, if you have any questions or if there's something you want to make sure is covered or addressed, if you can just let Tom know ahead of time, that would be great. All right, Ms. Wood.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank all those that donated to our can drive for the district, all of the for the food banks and the, all of that stuff, and we raised an enormous amount of food for our community, and it's good to see that people are still willing to donate and help out their fellow man. So, especially with the way the world is these days. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you. Great job by all. All right, so we will open it up to board member reports. I'm going to start actually by calling on our student board rep, Paige Winks. Paige has some things that she'd like to address. So,
one of the things that I was talking about with them Friday was that a lot of talk around my school is like they want to bring Chromebooks home. And I don't know how we want to try to do that, but I think it would help a lot because not as many people have that technology at home, and a lot of them are already bringing them home. So just make it possible if they want to be feel like they're doing something bad by bringing technology home to do the homework.
So if I could kind of just touch upon that before you go to your next one. So since Friday, we were able to kind of put some numbers to this, and we've had a couple meetings with our admin staff at Paul V. Moore and myself and Ms. Gershman. And so this is the kind of, here are the parameters, here are some of the things that we're struggling with. So out of all the students in the high school, roughly 1,200 students in the high school, we've got 122 Chromebooks that are not accounted for. Are they in existence? Yes. What we're having is students aren't what we feel is bringing them in for when it's inventory time, and they're going home. But then the problem is when students are forgetting them at home, they're going to the different carts and taking somebody else's off, which is then creating a domino effect. And the fact that someone else says, I don't have my Chromebook, we have the technology to find out who does, and we go up and we say to the person, you've logged in with this Chromebook, and then they say, oh, I know, I forgot mine at home. And then we find out that the same kid has done this twice and has 2 Chromebooks at home. So while we agree that we like the idea of having students have devices at home, there's no doubt about that. It's trying to find a way, because the number one reason how we're using them is an instructional tool. We have teachers have their kids in classrooms built up electronically, whether it's in Google Classroom or Schoology, and it's needed for them to have that during the lesson. So we're meeting. We met again today. As of right now, it has been, when we did this, we rolled out that they weren't allowed to be able to go home because we kind of foresaw this could be an issue. So somebody was like, well, what if we have class sets? The reason that we wanted to stay away from that is the goal was to have a 5-year replacement plan. And if we went and every teacher had a class set, that's literally buying 4 times more than we need, because instead of you bringing it to the next one, you bring the next one, it's like, well, I'm going to use this one in this class, and the next class there's another one for me, and the next class there's another one for me. So we have to look at the cost in a replacement plan to do it that way as the way they're doing it right now. We were looking at some things, a possibility of doing what we did last year, since the last block in the day is actually 5 minutes longer than block 1 and block 2. If we gave students more time at the end of that day to be able to go and wherever their docking station is, to be able to do that, so that kids don't have that panic. And we know you had addressed that before. You were saying, I believe it was you, Mr. Beverly, your daughter was in panic to be able to go and do that. So part of it is also when what we can do with middle school, because we're kind of tied there, because they only have 3 minutes in passing, not 5, and they have 40 minutes instead of block scheduling of the 8 minutes they have at high school. So we're working on some things, but to your point, you bring up a valid point, and this is something that board has kind of discussed before. Do we let them go home? Do we not let them go home? How do we have something in place? And I want the student voice to be part of this conversation. I feel that it should be. I also think that the students should know that there's 122 of them that haven't been. 4 of them destroyed, but the other ones we know they exist, but they're not coming back to school, which means someone's grabbing one for another one that's open, and that's become a logistic nightmare to try to track where these all are, all points. But to let you know that that is something that we're thinking about. There are students that maybe only have 1 device at home, and maybe the parent is constantly using that for their job, which leaves, like you had said, situations where students don't have devices to be able to do work. And I've said for the longest time that I truly think that it's totally unfair that you have some students that have internet, that have the capability to get information, to be able to look up a video, to see how to do something, whether it's a math problem or whatever, and other students don't have that. That becomes an uneven playing field. So we're looking at how other districts are doing with hotspots, things that the district, but again, are there grants available for us to do that? Is that something we build in to, it's a budget? But those are it's a big discussion that we're having.
Well, is there like a way where because like, if a kid's bringing like 2 or 3 home and they're not bringing them back, can't you just can you talk to their parents, and can't you tell them that they're not allowed to bring Chromebooks back? Because I feel like we're in high school, we should be responsible for our actions and everything.
And I agree, but here's the problem, is the student will say, I did bring it back, I put it in a docking station. Somebody must have took it. So it's like, how do we tighten up that process? It's easier at the middle school, and when we did our research in other districts, it was easier at the middle school because it's the teaming. They're literally, all the rooms that they go to, their 4 content areas are within quick walking distance. It's easy to see that all those are being put back. But at the high school, it opens up a whole different world when they're not seeing their teachers every day, depending on their schedule, whether it's an A-B day, C-D. So they don't finish in the same spot. So then how does the teacher then have a really good idea to say, well, that's missing, but I didn't have that kid today, so I don't know where that would be. So logistically, we're looking at it. This is one of the top things that Mrs. Gershman is dealing with. We've met probably 3 times since we met. You brought that up to really say, okay, how do we address this and give the students that opportunity that may not have a device at home? How do we do that? Police it so we're not $31,000 in the hole right now. You know what I mean? So you bring up a great point, and that's why I'm glad that you're bringing it up here.
So for expectations for this page, obviously is talking to the students and stuff. Is it reasonable to expect, certainly the policy or the ability to bring them home district-wide is not going to happen this year, but before the start of next school year, if there is a feasible way for the district to do it, you'll present that and update us before the end of the school year?
Yeah, if there's a feasible way, and I know that other districts, there's companies that parents can buy insurance on them when they go home, but the biggest thing is to try to prove that they didn't actually, break it at home, as opposed to them saying, well, no, I put it in the dock station. Oh, it's not there? Somebody must have took mine. So it's really hard to figure that out. And yes, where we want students to be able to all have devices at home, we also have to have some procedures in place to safeguard the destruction of them or just stolen. So, but yes, we continue to look.
How many Chromebooks do we have total?
In a district-wide or high school?
Our first purchase was 4,300, and then we purchased another 150 after that.
Okay, so we're missing how many?
122
In the high school.
at the high school.
What is our policy for attempting to recover those? Just talk to the parents, talk to the student, that's it?
Well, so here's the problem is there's only 4 that we know have outright been destroyed. When you ask the teachers, they say their students all have Chromebooks, but the problem with that is if a kid doesn't have one, they left it at home, they grabbed somebody else's. So we're trying to figure that out right now. So to answer your question, yes, it's conversation with the parents saying, we're missing yours. Your child doesn't have one. Talking to the student, where is your Chromebook? And then the problem is the student says, oh yes, I forgot it, but then I found it, and then I docked it. If it's missing, it wasn't my fault. So
it sounds like everything keeps coming back that the docking is the issue. So if everybody was issued a Chromebook, in the beginning of the year, no different than like a textbook, and they were responsible for that book, and they're not being docked, they're in their possession the entire time, they don't have the opportunity to be taking it from this docking station from the other students.
yeah, but right, but then the problem is they have theirs that they get at the beginning of the year, but then the problem is some of them are bringing it home, not bringing it back.
But if that's what the system was designed to do,
Yeah.
it was like, Tom, here's your book for this year.
Yep.
You're a junior, this is yours. At the end of the year, you have to check this book in. I don't care if it's a Chromebook or a physical book.
Yeah.
Come the end of the year, you don't have it, you get billed for it.
Right, and if you don't bring it
Just like we
during
used
the
to
day,
with textbooks.
Correct. No, I hear what you're saying. So then let me give you this one. So let's not wait to the end of the year. Let's say first month into it, student forgets theirs and just grabs one off the cart, and nobody knows that that person just grabbed it off the cart until that other person comes in and says, mine's missing.
but that
But
person
this
shouldn't
is-
be having it on a cart.
there's no
because
cart.
Everybody should, the cart should be.
Yeah, Tom, they're saying there's no cards anymore.
Okay, so with no cards, then how do we charge them?
Well, what we'd have to do is remove all the charging cables from all the carts, and they're wired onto the carts, and we paid a good price to have that done. We'd have to remove them all and send them home. And then you do increase your cost, because if you think Chromebooks get lost, wait till you see those $30 chargers get lost.
Yeah, and
I
by no
lost
means
mine.
am I trying to quote the conversation. I'm just saying, I think, Lorena and team, I think there's dozens of options out there. I think they just need the time to figure out which one is best and then present to the board what, because we're financially responsible for all this. What are we willing to back them up on?
So we said right from the start, this was going to be an evolving process. So we wanted to roll them out slowly, try to keep control of them, and then we keep having conversations. Even this year, when we rolled out in the high school, we did it a little differently than we did it last year, and so we're learning as we do this process. Very few high schools actually have a one-to-one the way we do. Most of them put carts in rooms, and that's where you use your cart. So we're learning, and we're kind of blazing the trail on this. So we continue to have conversations about all these different options, what we have the manpower to cover, and then back to my tech plan in year 3, there is a plan to talk about getting some equity in students' access to Wi-Fi at home. So that's in year 3 of our tech plan. So we can send books home, but if we don't have that ability to be able to get kids connected, it's just a piece of plastic that goes home with kids. So we want to be sure that when we send them home, they can use them, and that we don't create inequity by saying, yes, take them home, do your homework, everybody assign homework on the Chromebook, and then kids can't get it done.
Yeah, because I don't think, it sounds like a lot of Chromebooks, but it's $31,000 of a $75 million budget. And to me, there's going to be a cost to this. They're going to get dropped, they're going to get forgotten, they're going to get broken. So you don't want to hire 2 more people and spend $60,000 to chase down $31,000 of the Chromebooks that have gotten lost. And there's 2 sides to that story. So is it budgeted in? And then once you start replacing them, maybe maybe the older ones can be signed out at the beginning of the year to take home to give an advantage. You know, I mean, there's a bunch of ways to skin the cat. And it's not like this, because I'm pretty sure the school has never lost a textbook. But maybe they did. So it's just part of the business.
Right, and I think when we started this whole process a couple of years ago, it was going to be, okay, what is the primary use for a Chromebook? And that was going to be instructional delivery. So I'm in classrooms all the time, and I see teachers that say, okay, students, you know, enter the electronic classroom, whether it's Schoology or Google Classroom. So that students will then access documents that the teacher put on. So they're using them as an instructional tool. So then what would that look like if 5 kids, 6 kids in the class, per block, forgot theirs at home? So then the teacher they can have that plan, then you're going to have hard copies of those as well to be able to plan for that. And I'm not saying that it can't be done. And to Paige's point, we don't want to penalize the students that are able to do this. Like she said, she has done this. And I bet you bring it back to school every day, right? Right. And so technically we started this and it was, no, you can't bring them home. So that's a difficult part of our job, is that we have something put in place. We know that there are students that won't violate that. We know that we have 122, 10% of the high school that haven't brought them back. So that's the part that we're kind of struggling with, but now we have we bouncing some ideas off. If we got rid of those cards and we actually said, this is your responsibility, I think it's something for to talk about, because I'd like to know what that would look like.
Is there not some sort of technology that we can individualize these so that a student cannot go to a cart and pick up any individual Chromebook and log into it? I mean, the technology's there. There has to be a way that we can individualize these things.
The technology is there, the manpower is not to monitor 4,300 books and who's logging into what when.
Not monitor. I mean, like on my Apple, I can't get into my Apple unless I've got a fingerprint or a facial ID. Or is there not some way that we can technologically advance these things so that it's going to dissuade a student from walking up to a cart and grabbing a different one?
So is that possible? So let's say Mike and I are students.
Yeah,
he forgot his. He wants to pull one off the hat to be mine.
Is that possible?
And he wouldn't be able to use it.
I'm not thinking that it is, because like our network, you can go to any computer and log in as part of the network. You can pick up any device. And if you're in the network, you can log into it. I'll check into it, but I think it's not possible.
Yeah, you're looking at another piece of software, probably another third-party software to probably handle that, like our Go Guardian. You can lock them all, but you can't lock one. It's all or nothing. So we can put times in, like you can only log on between this time and this time, but it's for everyone. You can't really individualize in the stuff we have, but we could always do some research and see if there's something out there that can handle that.
Let's look into that, because that's an excellent idea. If that could work, then people would know. There's no point in me trying to grab somebody else's.
Right.
And it goes back to accountability. I agree with you, Steve. I mean, let's not spend $60,000 to chase $2. I get it. But we're teaching accountability here. And whether it's 4 or 120 or 1,000 of these things missing, some level of accountability needs to be doled out, and that needs to be demonstrated back to us, you as admin, us as board members, that the students are capable of handling this accountability. And the parents are willing to bear the responsibility as well.
We have to sign a waiver at the beginning of the year for my stepson, because they bring home their Chromebooks, charger and all. I mean, there's options out there.
Right, I don't know if we know this number, but roughly 122 from the high school. I would assume, we may not know the exact numbers, but a lot less at the other levels.
0 at the elementary. Because everything is so controlled at the elementary.
So we're talking roughly 2.5.
Correct. They do walk out, they go to art, they go to music, and they come right back, but everything is so highly monitored in an elementary environment. Middle school, I had emailed her today for a number, and I think she came up with 2 or 3, and that's it, missing, compared to 122. Again, because it's a little more controlled, they're done by team, and they're all very concentrated in one space.
Let me ask you, Lynn, you're sitting right there. Is there ever a situation where a student doesn't have their Chromebook in your classroom?
Mostly kids say they don't have it because they broke it. That's a major issue when they're breaking them on purpose. I've had to let kids
is that, would you say, out of a class with 25 kids, that's under 3 kids per class that don't have their Chromebook, or how big is that issue?
In each given class, on any given day, depending, 1 or 2 in a class.
Okay.
But sometimes it's not, sometimes everybody got it.
So if there is deliberate damage or breakage to a Chromebook, a referral is written and parents are billed for that device, so.
But, I mean, at that point, do they lose that privilege? They should be doing assignments. I mean, I know we don't want to keep the students from advancing technologically, but at the same time, I mean, why would we continue to hand them?
It's not advancing technologically, it's learning.
Well,
so it's,
I get it.
we would issue another textbook, we would issue another calculator, we issue another Chromebook.
You have to, because
Yeah.
you're using that as your regular experience, you have to still provide it. You may be at a
Your microphone doesn't work that way, just so you
Well, earlier Tom had said, you know, printing out lessons for students that weren't using them, if they forgot them or something. So I was referring more to that. Like if they're reading a book on the Chromebook, or they're going over a lesson on the Chromebook, but it can be done on paper, I don't think we should continue to provide that student with.
Right. It does depend on what the task is, what the thing has to do.
So district-wide anyway, 2.5% to 3%, which is a lot more reasonable than the 10% at the high school.
Yes, absolutely.
Paige, next one.
Yes, that was number
There's
1.
Paige.
Another thing is that we've been talking a lot about how we don't have late arrival, but we have early dismissal support.
Yep, so that's something that I just had a conversation with the admin team. What she said, again, if you didn't quite catch that, it was we have early dismissal for seniors, but why don't we have late arrival? Well, again, this goes back to the conversation that we had, and I'm in support. It's a conversation we had last year that we wanted, originally we wanted to have procedure or practice put in place where no kid was allowed to have more than one study hall unless it was allowed by the executive principal for a specific reason. We do have students that aren't trying to manipulate the system, that they take a distance learning course, they take another college level course. It happens like one time in their 4-day cycle where they have 2 study halls back to back. So in talking with Kristen Enright, and she oversees counseling, with the seniors, what they did was they made sure that their academic were at the beginning of the day, so then they could go and work or do job shadowing or internships for that other part of the day. It's still, there's handfuls of kids where it does kind of still fall into their schedule where they have this beginning of the day with 2 blocks, which is 160 minutes of study hall. I talked to Kristen Enright, she's actually sitting right there, and she has approved students that have come to her with this, and she said, no, this is right, contacted the parent, and they went through that where then they do have late arrival. So it's not something that we have said no to, it's just the process that she oversees the counseling that they would go that way. Where I guess there's a fine line, like we want to be very clear, we don't want to let every kid know, yes, hey, you know what, you're a senior, and you want to sleep in, don't take such and such and such course, and then you can go to the principal, and then you can just have late arrival. Because we know that we needed to increase the rigor. It was pretty bad when we had 75 seniors last year at 11:30 were gone for the day. When they could have taken, it wasn't like once every 4, it was like every day the same group of kids were checked out and were going. And then still planned on going to a 2 or 4 year school and wondering why they couldn't make that adjustment their first year. Because it wasn't realistic to have a 2-hour school day their senior year. So to your point though, we're not against that. If a student would come to their counselor would talk to Mrs. Enright, she would meet with the student and say, look at the schedule, yes, we can accommodate this, it works, and you can do it.
So forgive my ignorance of the current process, and I'm directing this to you, I don't know who's wants to answer it, but let's just stick with early dismissal today. If someone's approved, is that dependent on academic standing and everything else?
Yes.
Perfect, that's...
Yes, we check it too, each marking period to make sure they should still be in it. Counselors check it, give me a list, we talk about which one should have it still, so it's a process each marking period if they, because it's a privilege, right?
Yep.
Me granting it, so
point too, Paige, they have to, like we talked about on Friday, they obviously have to have their own transportation, just like the students that leave at 11:30 or 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. They have their own transportation, or else it would be impossible for us to be able to have all of those bus runs.
All right. So I guess I have to ask a question there because, I get what you're saying, but aren't we then limiting it? Because right now, parking spots are limiting it to certain students. So aren't we limiting the pool of people that are eligible for late arrival?
We have not denied parking. We have ample parking for all of our students.
So that restriction's been taken off?
That's gone.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Paige? You mentioned PE.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just, I don't know if we can like talk about it or not, but it's gym makeups, like you have to make it up when it's a school function and everything, and I just don't feel like it's right.
So if I could jump in, this has been a hotbed issue before she even brought this to my attention on Friday. I've had a number of students, and I'm not exaggerating, I probably had at least 20 students come up to me, I've had parents contact me, and I've had teachers contact me, and they said, Tom, this push towards college and career readiness is awesome, but we've got a stumbling block here. And no disrespect or no pointing the blame at any of our PE teachers or our PE director, it's not it, but here's the conundrum that we face. When a student misses school for a legal absence, death in the family, sick, college visit, field trip, they need to make up that 80-minute block. So they can do that doing two choices. They can do 2 academic advisement times that are 30 minutes each, and that constitutes, the PE teacher said that constitutes one of our classes. So they would go down during their academic advisement time and do whatever they have them do in the weight room or whatnot to be able to make up for that. Or they could stay from 3:30 to 4:30, which then they would catch the 5:30 late bus, and if they're living far enough away, whether in the North Shore, they're not going to get home until 7:30, 7 o'clock. Well, I'd say 7 o'clock. Some said 7:30, I think it was exaggeration. 7 o'clock. So let's say now you have a kid that was legitimately sick, but then had a college visit. Now they have to make up 4 academic advisement times, but at the same time, they need to make up those class tests that they may have missed in quizzes that they would normally do during academic advisement time. So the complaint that I'm hearing from students, teachers, and some parents is that they feel the system, not the personnel, but the system that we have in place makes it very difficult for students to do a job shadow, an internship, a college visit, because it's brutal for them to make that up. And if they don't make that up, you could be talking about a kid with a 99 average, ranked whatever in the class, and now all of a sudden they have a 78 for PE, which really throws them off. So it's that they want to go and do these great opportunities, but they also feel that making that up has become a bear. Now, before anybody asks, what are the regulations? Well, there are mandates about minutes, but I heard right from the commissioner's mouth, that's really based on your individual districts. So some school districts in our county, because I spent this whole year looking at this, some districts in our county allow students, let's say if it's a traditional school with 40 minutes, they allow like 3 get out of jails. You know, you're sick 3 times or you're sick twice, college visit, you don't need to make it up. If it goes to the 4th one, now you've got to make that 4th one up. Whether that's, and some of them do it as just 1 academic advisement period, in the other districts, which is like 30 minutes. We have probably the most stringent one in place right now. So again, I want to value our PE teachers, and they're saying that it's a participation type grade. So if they're not there, I don't want to devalue their curriculum, and I get it, it's important, it's meaningful. But we also don't do what other districts do with the sport contract that New York State allows. If a student is playing a sport during that season, that they have a study hall, or sorry, that they have PE, they can have a study hall or just take another course. And they don't have to make that up. That's something I know across the state PE teachers are trying to have that overturned. She's not going to overturn that. So it's kind of, again, up to the district. So to answer your question, those are the things that we're looking at. What I did get is 2 get out of jail free passes. It's probably a horrible way to say it, but for the semester they get 2 chances if there's a legal absence that they don't have to make up. That's 1 per marking period. A marking period is typically, as we all know, it's 10 weeks, but they only see their PE teacher 7 times because of the 4-day. So they would be able to miss 1 per marking period, 2 per semester. That's a start compared to what we have right now.
Just as you were going through it, I was thinking real world example, because tomorrow is DECA. So a bunch of kids will be missing gym tomorrow.
120, yes.
A bunch of those kids will then make the DECA competition.
Yep.
And miss possibly another gym class. So yeah, it's a serious impact on a lot of kids.
And with the whole sport thing, I'm kind of wondering what constitutes a sport.
Are you saying like marching band? But again, that's a different conversation because we don't give marching band letters, which I'm going to tell you right now, I've been in a lot of marching band and I see the stuff that they do, it's pretty athletic. So that's a whole different other conversation on what constitutes as getting a letter, but to your point, I know.
I mean, it's just, I'm just throwing it out there, you've got to define things, I guess. You know what I mean? Versus what we have right now, which really isn't defined.
But I also don't want to devalue what is defined. There is a PE curriculum that the state, you know what I mean? There are things that they do. Gone are the days when I was in school and the PE teacher would just throw a bunch of like baseball mitts on the ground and say, make teams, or dodgeball, you know? Right. That's not how our PE is done. It's actually, it's kind of, what's the term for our PE?
Sport ed model.
Sport ed model. And that's as differentiated as you could possibly get. I mean, it's pretty engaged. Kids really enjoy PE. But the separate topic is, what do they do when they miss it? And how do they have to make that up?
Right.
So that's an ongoing conversation we're having right now. Before I made this change, they had to make every single one up. Some of the students said to me, well, that's huge. I made the change for this semester starting up in a couple weeks. Correct.
So for Paige's concern, you know, you guys are talking about it, you may or may not change something for next year. And again,
no, we've already changed for the next semester.
I know, but there may be additional changes.
Correct.
We're discussing it. And so for the audience and the board, this is a practice, so the board, we can give our input, but this isn't a policy, it's what the district, what you do in day to day. But what's a time frame when Paige can expect an update, like for instance, if there's going to be additional changes for next year?
Well, I would be sitting down with their union president because that has impacts with their unit. I'm sure they would come to her and she would come to me for our normal meetings and say, my unit sees this, could see this as an impact of being able to reduce the number of PE teachers, which I don't see that. But they could, because right now the way that they do it is they have so many different activities that the students, based on their interest, which fits right into our differentiating model, that if they don't like bowling, that's okay, you can do this, if you can do that. Which brings up another great point, is Chance brought up over the weekend, what if we worked in the hunter safety, like the actual instructional part of it, then on the weekend, they would have to go to a range to be able to get the certification. That could be a choice that they take. But I know, getting back to it, that would be part of the process of sitting down with Lynn, because it impacts them, and then really kind of ironing something out that we think is pretty fair.
So I'm just going to throw out a date. No, like first meeting in April, do you need longer than that? And again, all I'm saying is an update to Paige. Even if the update is, here's where we're at, and we're continuing to move down the path towards that.
Let's say first week in April, but Lynn, let's have that on our next docket. You may want to talk to PE teachers, because I know this is a hotbed issue in high school. And then we could put our minds together. So on April,
Send me an email.
I will. I will.
So Pearl, did you note that's April 8th? And again, it doesn't have to be a full-blown presentation, just some sort of update so that Paige knows the next steps.
What do you got next page?
I think that was it.
That was it? Great job.
Yeah, nice job. Good stuff, good discussion. All right, open forum for the rest of the board. Any other topics that you want to bring up tonight? Already covered Chance. Anyone else?
I just have a kind of an odd question. I know a year or so ago we started kind of loosening up a little bit on the rules for cell phones and students having them or not having them. Have we gone back to not allowing them at the school?
I haven't heard that. No, students students have cell phones. Again, where students would be punished is if they're in classroom and they're on Facebook or they're calling a friend. That's a behavioral consequence.
Right.
But if a student's in the hallway, they're making that phone call, or they're in classroom, and I've actually been observing classrooms where they have a Chromebook, but I also was in science class when they were talking about the different forms of rock formations. The student was on that doing research.
Okay.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to make sure because there was such a high degree of engagement in it, I wanted to see. So I kind of walked behind, and no, she had the different geoform, and she was on that. So if there's an issue where teachers are punishing kids for just having their cell phone without doing any negative stuff, I'd want to be aware. I would want the principal to, have you heard of any? No, absolutely not.
Okay. I just, because I hear things through the kids that come through my house, and so I want to verify before I assume.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else from the board? All right, turn it over for the superintendent's report.
Okay.
Witnessing a disaster, Tom's cheetah glasses lost one of the arms.
Here we go. A.A. Cole led the food fight another year with a total of 9,584. Brewerton had 8,269. Central Square Middle School had 951. Hastings Mailer Elementary had 881. Miller Hawk Elementary had 355. Paul B. Moore had 815. This broke the record on how many we've been able to collect. I will say, without mentioning any names, but there is somebody in the community at A.A. Cole that every year drops $5,000. But I don't want to embarrass anybody because we only have like 4 people in the audience, so I don't want to give that away, who that could possibly be. All right. Warm Coat Drive was able to help multiple families serving 50 adults, 67 school-age children, 22 preschool children with coats, snow pants, hats, gloves, mittens, scarves, and boots. Thank you to everyone for your contributions. The following students earned a performance seat in the Oswego County Senior High All-County Honors Band. Jillian Julian, Jessica Georges, Jillian Howe, Danny Moran, Clara Ames, Matthew Newton, Lily Fitzgerald, Rachel Stringer, Delaney Childs, Hannah Swalski, I said that right? Sywalski, great job, Hannah. Cole Wilson, Jared King, Eddie Day, Brianna Freeborn, Hope Johnson, and Joe Fiamano. The following students were selected to perform in the Oswego County Music Educators Association Elementary All-County Festival. Nicole Barnes, Cambry Bennett, Anthony Clark, Owen Delahunt, Summer Fetter, Logan Frank, Michaela Capel, Jade Hansen, Finley Harwood, Lillian Hines, Susanna Hipp, Sean Maddox, Kiara Minielli, Cadence Panic, Jennifer Rendu, Logan Reynolds, Cindy Saunders, Abby Tetralt, Logan Eptigrove, and Antonella Vecchio. Congratulations to Slade Springer, Paul B. Moore Sr., first team All-Central New York football defensive end. I also want to give a huge congratulations to our music department, to Ron Herney, Ron Hallman, everybody that's involved with our students in the performances. Phenomenal. So myself, many of cabinet were at all the concerts. Aaron and myself for the elementary, I think it was 8 straight concerts in a row, all last week and half of the week before that. They were amazing. They packed the auditorium. It's amazing sense of community and support that we get from our students, our families. It's wonderful. That was fantastic. That ends my superintendent report. Oh, wait, one quick thing, so sorry. The Community Safety Forum, This is for any of the board members that wanted to come. I know I'm going to be going, and some of the other board members had mentioned. It looks like this. You guys each have one, correct? You with a hard copy. And that is Tuesday, January 8, 2019, 6 to 8 p.m. It's hosted by City BOCES. It's at the Stern Building on their campus in Mexico. The other really good news is we're thrilled that we've been invited by well, I asked her, and she said it was a great idea. She welcomed us, so the Oneida superintendent is going to show us several of the buildings over in Oneida on Friday. We don't have school in session, but they do. So we have Jane DeLaCastro is actually going to be coming in for that as well. And some of our admin team and some of the board members. Because a lot of the buildings that you're going to see in Oneida really mimic what our buildings look like. So it's kind of helped us begin with the end in mind when we're talking about the redesigning of our front entrances so that they go into that kind of safe area that we can verify who they are. And then when they're put into the office, there's another level that they can't get out of the office without being buzzed out those doors. So there's a lot of really cool things that we're going to be able to see. Plus, Armored One did all of their window tinting, so it's going to give us a great opportunity. Also, there will be King and King to be able to walk us through it, to show what they did there and how it kind of mimics ours as well. So that's a really exciting thing, and that's going to be for Friday. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Colabufo. I'll put one plug in for I know Wednesday is the high school band concert. If any of you haven't been there when they do Canon and D, it's a really great kind of close to the concert, so you're all invited Wednesday. All right, with that, we'll move into items for discussion and action. So I will, any objection for asking for a motion to accept? Actually, let's take them one at a time. I'll make a motion to accept item F1, which is the approval of the overnight student trip. Can I have a second? And Mrs. Nickerson beat you to it. Any discussion on that overnight trip? All those in favor? Unanimous. And can I get a motion for item F2, the approval of the renewal with Pyramid Brokerage for the sale of the property at 140 Bridge Street, Cleveland, New York. This will be a month-to-month renewal, so this would extend it through the end of January. So motion by Mrs. Nickerson, I have a second by Mrs. Fishman. Any discussion?
Why are we doing that?
Why are we doing month-to-month?
The current, why are we extending it, or why are we only doing month-to-month? The current contract only goes through the end of December.
Right.
So we have to do. So we currently have work going on and potential buyers, and so it's to allow the time for them to come to final decision or not, which is why it's month-to-month versus a 6-month extension, and Mr. Colabufo has communicated.
No, and I can say that publicly. So we got that letter of interest/intent from the DEC, and they wanted to really wrap it up by the end of the calendar year. But the issue with that was that the governing body needed an appraisal less than 3 years. That's old, so we had to do that. But we're also a governing body, so we needed to get minimum of 2 to 3 bids, or 3 to show that we actually in good faith tried to get 3. We got 2. And one of them was 4 weeks, the other one was 6 weeks. The 6-week one was substantially lower in cost, and we knew that we weren't going to be able to close it out by the end of this calendar year. So at a savings of the district, we went with the 6-week one. So once that's done, the letter that I got from the DEC said that's the only thing that will result in the purchase offer based on the appraisal, which is good for us. We want to be able to sell it what it is appraised for. So that's why we did month-to-month. So if that were to fall through, we could then just say after that month we're going in a different direction.
Any other discussion? All right, all those in favor? And that is unanimous. All right, moving on to the consent agenda, I'll make a motion to accept item G in its entirety. Can I get a second? Second by Mrs. Wood. Any discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you. Sorry, just taking a look here. Item H, any objection to, would someone like to put forth a motion to take item H in its entirety?
I'll put forth that motion.
Mr. Bedworth, Second?
I'll
Mr.
second.
Loy. Any discussion on H? All those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. All right, and now we are going to be moving into executive session. So I will make a motion that the Central Square School District Board of Education hereby moves into executive session to discuss litigation in the matter of Andrea M. Shore and Robert D. Shore versus Central Square Central School District with no action to follow. Can I get a second? Second. Second by Mr. Loy. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. We will come back out to close the meeting, but there will be no action, so have a great night. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy New Year.
Christmas.